Welcome to the Alpha Overwatch podcast, where we tackle subjects to help men, especially first responders and military, go forth and conquer. Alpha Overwatch is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting those on the front line, helping them go forth and conquer in every area of their lives by providing community, support, and tactical retreats. To learn more and support the first responders and military personnel Alpha Overwatch is impacting, visit our website at alphaoverwatch.org. Enjoy the episode. Hey, welcome to the Alpha Overwatch podcast. My name is Richard Jett, the founder and chairman of Alpha Overwatch, and thank you for tuning in today, and I'm excited about today's subject matter as we get started with episode 1 of the Alpha Overwatch podcast. And I hope you guys are enjoying the fall weather, or as you know, like to call it, the job shirt weather. Being able to break out the job shirt was always a highlight, and being able to wear it around on duty was always a good time. So hope you guys are doing well. And before we get into today's subject matter, I just wanted to make sure that kind of be clear up front. The podcast is not always going to be me. I don't even like seeing my own face, and I know you guys don't like seeing this face either. So it's not always going to be me, and it won't always be this formal. I hope to have more of a conversation, roundtable type discussion with other guys and covering real subjects and interests that all of us guys share and have. And I do plan to make sure it's worth your time, and it will help you become more and to go forth and conquer. That I don't want to just be making a podcast and make a podcast and everything. We all have other stuff we could be doing, so I want to make sure that we're getting to the point and getting to the subject matter. I would like to say we will do a podcast every week. I would like to say that, but I don't want to clog the airway and just simply put one out just to put one out. And also, it's not about knowing more. It's about doing and acting on what you already know. That's really the purpose. So oftentimes we can get stuck in this groove of just learning more and more and more and more, but we're not acting or putting it into action. And so I would rather have maybe more sporadic podcasts, but we're actually having time to actually apply what's being said and what we're learning type things. So if you have some subjects and you want it covered, then feel free to email me, rjett, Jett, at alphaoverwatch.org. And I'll start compiling lists and getting the podcast ready and getting the people that I know that are maybe more specialized in those areas to come on and share their knowledge with all of us. But with all that, let's get going. I plan on covering 3 things really quickly. One is to cover our number one enemy that we all face. 2, give more of a generalized understanding of my story, and then hopefully bring some clarity to what Alpha Overwatch as an organization is. So to set it all up, I'm going to start with a classic movie, one of the top greatest guy movies out there, and I'm a big movie guy. Yes, I like to read, but I also like to watch my movies. And so there's a movie quote for everything, I always say. And my dad, that was his thing as well. So if you'll excuse me for just a moment, I'm actually going to read a description of the opening scene of this movie just to get us started, and because it really paints a great picture of what we're going to be talking about. And see if you can guess what the movie is. And you know what? If you can't, it's no big deal. You just got to turn in your man card. All right, here we go. There he is, a warrior, a hero, a man. Not just any man, a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, a Green Beret that did his duty for the love of his country and went above and beyond the call of duty for the men he served along with in the jungles of Vietnam. He had gone through so much during his years of service. He was captured and tortured in ways that you can't even dream. You might expect to see a limp or deformity, but instead he is the perfect specimen of physical fitness. However, the worst wounds are the ones you cannot see. As a Green Beret who was a Medal of Honor recipient, you might expect him to maintain some of the military clean cut look while working a good steady job. Instead, he's disheveled, unkempt, and hitchhiking across America, unable to hold a job because of the undiagnosed PTSD and demons that have followed him home from the jungles of Vietnam. When we find him, he's walking along the highway in Washington on a cold, gray, wintry day. A storm is brewing, but the real storm is inside this hero. The cloudiness outside is nothing compared to his soul. The bounce in his step is gone. The pride in his march has disappeared. He has just learned that his last friend from his team in Vietnam died from the cancer, and he is all alone. Alone in this world that has labeled him and cast him out like trash. His country labeled him as a baby killer without ever getting to know him just because he fought in a war they disliked. He sacrificed his best years and peace of mind to go fight in a war he didn't create for the love of his country and to save those who stayed back from the misery he would face. However, in the ugliness of the battle, he had his new family alongside him. His teammates were not just colleagues, they were brothers. A brotherly bond that only a few lucky ones get to experience because of the blood, sweat, and tears that comes from their shared experience of suffering and trauma. He is alone in a world he doesn't understand, engaged in a new battle that this Green Beret has not trained to fight. The battle for his soul. However, maybe things are about to turn around for him because his aimless journey has brought him to a little town called the very thing he is needing: hope. While this hero continues his walk into the town of Hope, we find another man emerge from his station. The sheriff comes walking out with authority and some pompous air about him. With the American flag blowing in the background, he pauses on the top steps, looking over the town he loves. Put his hat on, gives his pants a good tug, but his gut keeps the pants right where they are. You can tell from his physique that this man is used to comfort and ease. As he makes his way to a squad car, you can tell by his demeanor that with the citizens that he knows his town, and while he has the aroma of a kiss the babies type politician, there's no doubt he loves his town too. It is no wonder he was elected sheriff, given his friendly demeanor with the people of his town, with people he approved of. He inspires confidence in that you get the impression that he is not afraid to throw his weight around to keep law and order. However, his arrogance from being the big fish in a small pond has deceived him into thinking that he is the law instead of being one to uphold it. Even as he drives off on patrol, we hear him say about one of his citizens under his breath, "You going to take a bath this week?" Right after he gave a huge polite greeting. He's quick to make judgments, and those are the only real reality according to him. Now the disheveled, depressed war hero drifting through is met with the arrogant, self-righteous sheriff of the city of Hope. Will the sheriff see the hurt in the warrior's eyes? Will he show him some compassion? Will he encourage him with some kind words and warm food? Will he give his hero what his soul needs? Hope? "Morning," sheriff yells from a squad car as he pulls up to the hitchhiking warrior. The soldier gives the sheriff a nod of hello and acknowledgement. You visiting somebody around here?" the sheriff inquires, as he tries to figure out what category to place his homeless wanderer in. "No," the soldier frankly says. Looking him up and down in judgment, the sheriff replies, "You know, wearing that flag on that jacket, looking the way you do, you're asking for trouble around here, friend." The soldier simply sighs as though he's used to the judgment and disapproval by now. "You headed north or south?" "North." "Jump in. I'll make sure you're headed in the right direction." "Huh?" says the sheriff, giving the impression that he is not like the other people he just talked about. Not looking to be impolite, the hero accepts the two are riding through the middle of town as the sheriff keeps the small talk going with what he thinks is a simple question, but it is a loaded question. "Where you headed?" he asks. This killing machine has lost his purpose and is wandering aimlessly by trying to find a place to call home for his heart and soul, but he replies, "Portland." "Portland is south. You said you're headed north." Maybe not wanting to discuss his conflicting answer and thinking it's none of the sheriff's business, or maybe just wanting to cut through the small talk, he changes the subject with a subject that is always on every man's mind: food. You got some place I can eat around here? There's a diner about 30 miles up the highway, replies the sheriff, finally revealing his true intentions. Is there any law against me getting something to eat here? The soldier calmly replies, as though he is used to being discarded. He can now add the local authorities to the list of people against him. Yeah, me. Why are you pushing me? With a cock of his head and the eye roll of the sheriff changes tone and replies, What did you say? I said, why are you pushing me? I haven't done anything to you. With a real gruff and authority, the sheriff fires back, and you can tell he is not used to people pushing back. First of all, you don't ask the questions around here. I do. You understand? Secondly, we don't want guys like you in this town. Drifters. First thing you know, we got a whole bunch of guys like you in this town. That's why. Because you wouldn't like it here. This is a quiet little town. In fact, you might say it's boring. But that's the way we like it. And I get paid to keep it that way. Boring, replied the warrior. Dejected and an outcast, he puts his head down for the rest of the trip through the town of Hope. As they reach the town's borders, the sheriff lets the soldier out. The soldier has a look of relief to be away from the sheriff and despair on where he will go on his face. Sheriff decides to give some unwanted advice. Portland straight ahead. If you want some friendly advice, get a haircut and take a bath. You wouldn't get hassled so much. Hope this ride helped you out. The sheriff flips a U-turn and leaves our Green Beret standing at the crossroads. He has a choice to make. He can continue to Portland and try his luck there, or he can march back into Hope and get what he needs there. What will he choose? He chooses to fight for Hope. Now, this is, if you haven't guessed, was from the movie First Blood, Rambo First Blood. Great movie. And it all sets up everything for us. And in this scenario, and really the whole movie, who seems to be the enemy? The sheriff, right? And the as you know, the movie, the police department and authorities there. And as men, we instinctively know we are in a constant battle. I think that's why we resonate so much with a lot of the movies like Rambo and others type thing. And it's a lot easier to focus on the enemy, though, out there, them. Those out there, that political party, they're the problem, or that person, whether it be your wife or girlfriend or coworker type thing, or getting it even deeper, in the deep state, they're the problem, or the economy, that's the problem, and it's all those policies out there. But sometimes that is the case, but when it is the norm, one has to start asking, is that the reality? Is that real? Because there's really only one common denominator amongst all those different scenarios, and it's you. And so, just as in the movie, we find out the real enemy of John Rambo was in between his ears, himself. And the same is true for us. Our greatest enemy is ourselves. And we see this displayed in so many different ways. And listen, Alpha Overwatch exists to help so that we can deal with PTSD and all that, but it doesn't mean that we're seeing something horrific all the time. A lot of times, it's just this underlining slight anxiety that we are dealing with, and we don't even recognize it. As men, we are born to lead, especially those of us, as first responders and military. We have this in us to lead. And so sometimes we kind of will overstep in that leadership, knowing that that's built into us, and we end up becoming overbearing and controlling. But it's anxiety, in a lot of ways, it starts creeping up, and we don't consider anxiety because we mask it, or depression. We mask it with stuff that's accepted. So whether it be our anger, our anger outbursts and irritability is coming out of that deep underlining maybe anxiety that we are experiencing, or we mask it with alcohol or drugs, porn, sex, food, all the common things. And you know, my own story is one that I want to be upfront. I was nothing great as a firefighter. I wasn't anybody special. You know, I was the average, and I got to serve alongside though some of the best. That was the honor that I got to have. But you know, knowing I felt so inadequate around the others, feeling like, wow, they have it all together, and I don't want to be the weak link. Like, it drove me to work harder, to train harder, and because it seemed like it came so easy for others. And I loved it, and I bore that, you know, Maltese cross proudly. But I knew rent was due every day. But then you had the struggles and hardship at home, you know, that would start developing, and in my own life, you know, having kids and married, and dealing with some of the stuff, that hardship and struggles that would come there. And you try to leave all that, you know, not coming into the station, and you try to leave everything from shift, not coming into home, but it's impossible for us to really do that in all reality. And you start adding in the adrenal fatigue and lack of sleep, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And so what would end up happening is, you know, in my own life, I started believing some of the lies that was going on in my head, that, you know, I wasn't good enough, or I was a fake. So I overcompensated with trying to work harder, or punishing myself when I would make a mistake, because pain retains, right? And so I would punish myself in some way to get myself so I didn't make that same mistake again. The problem is with that kind of mentality is that it actually works. And it was good to drive. It's a good drive to have, to want to improve. We should have that initiative and wanting to, you know, drive ourselves to be better. That it's a good thing to have, and we should all have that. But then there comes a part where it actually crosses a line, and you start finding your worth and identity in your activities. And so now you find yourself on this treadmill where you don't feel like you're good enough, but you keep pour more of yourself into these activities. You get praise from it, you're seeing results from it, and so you're in this constant cycle. But the whole time you're just getting absolutely exhausted, and you're not dealing with a true peace, I guess, from the core. And so it's more outwardly driven than coming from the inward change. And some of the stuff was healthy. You know, there's healthy things that I was driving to, activities I was doing, but then there was some unhealthy, and both were out of place, because the right thing in the wrong spot is a bad thing. So a healthy drive was to work out, and I was driven to train and work out. But it becomes a bad thing when I can't enjoy or do anything else until I work out, or I'm just not in a good mood, or whatever. Then now it's kind of switched, and it's become a more of a priority than what it should be. But then there's also the unhealthy activities that you would try to find the escape and peace, because you have this unrest that you're trying to deal with, and you don't know how to. And so violating boundaries, and maybe making compromises that you normally wouldn't make. And you then, when you get into this thing, the guilt and shame or whatever, you start maybe accepting the defeat, and often overcompensate with anger or resentment. In my own case, like, I started even considering divorce to save my family from any more pain or heartache. You know, is that what needs to happen here? Because I can't get out of this cycle. However, I'm not that way anymore. I was able to overcome, and it wasn't through my own grit and trying harder. It was something, I was rescued, and it was a change of desires from the inside. And we'll talk about that in the future thing, but that's kind of just an overview of my story. And if you show up to recon events or deployments, I will definitely go into more detail. But being on a podcast, I don't want to get into a lot of those details where it's for everybody to hear. And so here's the thing though, in all this, when I was called away to the fire service, because I was going to be a 35-year guy. That was my plan, and it was one of the hardest things to do, to walk away from that family, the brothers, and it was so hard for me to walk away. But when I did, I realized that I was putting too much stock in what I was doing, and it wasn't coming naturally out of who I actually was. And I started recognizing how unhealthy I truly was, mentally and emotionally type thing. And I realized that I had also allowed myself to become unhealthy in my pursuit. And that's the thing, is burnout is less by work and more emotional and relational. It's not so much the work burden. I could do the work just fine, but it was a lot of the emotional and relational, and I wasn't recognizing it. I thought I was just fine. This is good. I'm this part of the grind. Everybody's doing it. Everybody else is fine. I'm good type thing. And it wasn't until having that rest that I started recognizing, hey, there's a deeper need here. And then when I looked nationally, realizing, hey, I'm not the only one, that this is a across the board type thing. And that's where Alpha Overwatch came out. So I want to be very clear with this. I am not better than any of you. Alpha Overwatch's message is not of judgment or condemnation, but of hope and showing a better way that leads to life. That's the driving mission and heart of Alpha Overwatch. If you hear us thinking that, oh, we're better or anything, no, that is not at all the case. And please call us out. Like, that's what we want to make sure that you understand, that we are on this journey together to help each other be the best that we can be. That we know that there's a higher potential that we could be reaching that will benefit not just our job and ourselves, but it's going to benefit our citizens that we are serving and also our families that we are part of. So we are here to build you up, not beat you down. Now, there's a movie that came out as Alpha Overwatch was kind of forming. There was a movie came out, and when I watched it, I was like, that is a perfect illustration of what Alpha Overwatch is all about. And it's the movie Land of Bad. I think it's still on Netflix, but if not, it's worth watching. And it's about a drone operator that is helping some special ops guys that are on a mission, and it guides them through some tricky terrain to avoid the enemy and to be able to get home safely. And that's how we see Alpha Overwatch, is that we are taking that Overwatch position to help those that are on the front line, you guys, and to say, hey, there's danger ahead, avoid that, or hey, you need to veer off to this way and we'll pick you up there. It's guiding you just like an Overwatch position would, to get to safety and to achieve the ultimate mission and directive. And so it's a great illustration, and and that's where our different events come into play. So the Recon event is big events where we have a group of guys that will get together, go camping or whitewater rafting or target shooting or whatever it might be. But it's a group of first responder, military, that we get together and we get to just kind of blow off some steam, decompress, and have some fun, and build that community that we need, that we all have experience on shift, but it's good to do it, off of shift as well, and get to know people from other areas, and the networking that can happen from there, and the power from that networking community to help us to go forth and conquer. And then deployments are for specific individuals. Those, and anybody, you can nominate yourself for deployment, you can nominate someone else, and that's on the alphaoverwatch.org website. But deployments are where someone has been recognized that they've gone above and beyond their call of duty, or that, hey, we're recognizing, even though they maybe don't recognize, they have this low grade anxiety, depression, and we want to see them not get burned out. So maybe pull away, and that's those tactical retreat of where we are able to customize a trip that for something that brings them life, so that they can come back into their work, their calling, and to go forth and conquer, and to be stronger and better, and to make sure they don't get burned out and leave before they're supposed to. and out of that. And so we're very intentional about that. So we have the bigger community to a more intentional focus, and then the leave no man behind is a thing that sets us apart with those that have gone through deployments. They have the opportunity to come back on another deployment with someone and walk alongside them in that journey, and to then also check in on them and be with them no matter where they might be in the nation, that, hey, we've gone through this experience together. How are you doing? Are you getting back into that grind, or are you able to stay in that place that you were able to get to on the deployment, and you're coming out of a place of peace and being centered, for lack of a better word. So you don't, because here's the thing, our calling, it asks a lot of you, but you don't have to sacrifice your mind, heart, and soul in your pursuit of your calling. That should never be something that you are called to sacrifice. And we want to see you be truly successful in all areas of your life, and especially the areas that really, truly matter. And I always admired those at the retirement ceremonies. You could see the ones that their families loved their firefighter and was anxious for them to be able to, have more of their time. And then I also was at retirement ceremonies where you kind of got the vibe that maybe that's not going to be the case. And I want to see all of us to have that, where when we're retiring, that it's, you have that, that family and that community there, that it's going to be life-giving, and it's going to be just, all right, we're just going to continue doing what we were already doing and thriving. So it is possible to succeed in all areas of life. By conquering in the areas outside of your shift and duty, it actually will make you better on shift. I've seen it happen, and I truly believe this. And for some of you, though, you might be thinking, you know what, I've messed up too much. I'm already on my second marriage, and it's looking like that's going to happen. My kids don't talk to me. I have this addiction going on, and I have this going on. And you might think there is no hope, and you're that wandering, Rambo going through looking for hope, but you've kind of just determined that it's not possible. And I'm here to tell you, there is hope. You are not done yet. As long as there is breath in your lungs, there's always something else you can do, and that it is possible to pull out of this, and that you can overcome and go forth and conquer. There is true hope, and there is a perfect model for us to follow, and we're going to look at that in the next podcast. But this path is not one of weakness. Okay, I don't want you to think, oh, this is just going to be a kumbaya and we're crying and no, that's not it. This is a path of strength. It takes strength and courage to confront yourself. It takes strength to do the right thing, and the path actually leads to becoming more of a man and not less. We will talk about this more next time. But for now, here's what I want you to ask yourself. What lie am I listening to and believing? And if you're struggling, please reach out. Please reach out. We are in this together. But until next time, go forth and conquer. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like, share, and rate the podcast. It really helps us reach more listeners. Don't forget to follow us on social media and visit our website, alphaoverwatch.org, for more information. Until next time, remember to go forth and conquer.